Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. 1. The background. I worked at a very big tech company for a very long time, like decades. Over the years, I had worked my way up from being a noob to a kind of specialist fixer. I became fairly well known internally as a security emergency response person. I got assigned bad or unfixable projects, many of which made news headlines. I have many stories that I can never tell publicly, sadly. Suffice it to say that multiple senior vice presidents in various divisions got to know who I was because I effectively wrangled gnarly and complex problems and herded many intense tech nerds together to resolve big things in multiple divisions over the years. It was so fun. At the time of our story, I was working on a small security team in a product engineering division. It was a somewhat turbulent time, and our team of 8 had weathered multiple reorganizations and had so many manager changes. It was a lot, but we kept our heads down and did the work, and we all got along just fine. Sidebar, and relevant later, one of the better managers assigned to run our team immediately assigned me a huge and complicated and urgently important project to manage. It would involve people in 6 different divisions, had seriously big legal implications, and our senior VP wanted it to happen by an aggressive deadline within like 4-6 weeks. Oh, and my manager was leaving imminently on a long-planned vacation, so he apologetically would be away for the next 3 weeks and unable to assist. The project was to do something big and technical and which had never been done before, so no one was entirely sure how to do it, who all it would require, what steps in what order. Some of the key players had what we gently called difficult personalities. And, oh, by the way, it would definitely make international news and cause a ripple in the industry when we did it. No big whoop. Manager was a decent guy, and he felt bad about leaving me with this thorny mess. And I did it. We got all the people from all the divisions in a room and mapped it all out on a whiteboard. It took days, and hashed out how to do it before the deadline. Actually well before, for bonus points. And we lined everyone up to get it done. Before we pulled the actual trigger on the very big thing, I had to attend a meeting with the VP and exec leadership, several levels of management above me. And with the legal team to present the plan and to assure all of the execs that we were ready and had it all handled. So I looked the VP in the eye and assured him that I got this, and then I did. The team did the big thing sooner than the deadline. It was flawless. We rocked that. Just another day at the office? 2. The inept manager. A few months after that epic project, our good manager left us for another role and someone new moved over from an unrelated division out of nowhere. We'll call him Inept Manager. Inept Manager did not know anything about security. He did not know anything about emergency response. He didn't know anything about what our division did, in fact. No one on our team had ever heard of this guy. It was that worst kind of middle manager. Self-important, dismissive of everyone, cares most about appearances and ego, micromanages stuff he doesn't comprehend, and just makes everything worse. But he apparently knows people, and those people get him job assignments because of politics, loyalty. He certainly didn't have any skills or experience for our team. That guy is the worst. One of Inept Manager's many weird quirks was that he didn't think it was appropriate for our team to disagree with or correct each other in front of other people. Things in tech, specifically product development, move pretty quickly and things change all the time. So if some of our team was meeting with someone from another team, and someone something like, so we decided to make this guy green, and we're on schedule. And someone else on our team chimed in to say, actually that's changed. We decided that this guy is now going to be blue, and we pushed the deadline back 2 weeks. That just happened in an earlier meeting. Oh, okay, cool. Inept Manager would interrupt and say, we clearly need to get on the same page. Let's end this meeting right now and reschedule when my team has all the facts straight. What? That's insane. We'd literally never have any meetings if we waited until everyone knew all of the same information all the time. Other teams would routinely leave meetings with us with inaccurate info, which affected release schedules, resources. It was just a mess. 3. Inept Manager hostility. Shortly after Inept Manager became our manager, he started being really hostile to me. Not to everyone on the team, just me. As far as I knew, I hadn't done or said anything to earn his hostility. Suddenly, after 20 years at this company, I could do nothing right. While this jerk didn't actually understand most of what my job was, he was sure I wasn't doing it right. And he was quick to tell me so, and often in front of others. To the point that my coworkers would take me aside to ask what the F was going on. I didn't know either. The thing is, I was the only woman on the team, and I have a disability. Now I've been through some things working in high tech over those decades. It was very much an old boys club back then. And I was fine. I'm not one to claim discrimination at the drop of a hat or for no reason. However, when I was trying to piece together the cause of this dude's hostility, some of his comments were sexist and not at all subtle. He also didn't like that due to my disability, frankly my seniority. I was given one of the few offices with a door on it in our new building. The rest of our team was in open floor plan cubicles, which everyone hated. He was incensed that I, a lowly direct report and woman, got an office and he didn't. I had more seniority than just about anyone, so even without my disability, I'd have scored the office ahead of him. Note that other men in our division got offices too, because again, seniority, and that bothered him less. But I was the only woman on our floor with a door, and I was his subordinate. His ego did not like it, not one bit. He threw a fit about it, repeatedly. There were lots of other things he said. My favorite among them towards the end was him reprimanding me for my bad attitude in a meeting we'd just had. Inept manager had told me beforehand not to say anything during that meeting because he was insisting on sharing incorrect information again, and he knew I'd want to correct it. So I sat quietly and kept my eyes on the PowerPoint presentation or the floor nearly the whole time. When I asked him how I'd had a bad attitude when I hadn't said anything, as he'd requested, I didn't like the look on your face. Okay, dude. After realizing there was nothing I could do to make this guy happy with my work and to lose his hostility, I finally went to HR to go on the record. I knew they'd do F, all about it, but I wanted to document it at least. Though predictably, they told me to work harder at getting along with an inept manager, and because it wasn't my first rodeo, I went back to my office and emailed HR saying thanks for meeting with me about my concerns about an inept manager. I fear his bias and misogyny will reflect negatively in my next performance review. HR should be aware that there is a real problem here, and I hope you'll take steps, etc., etc., which of course they didn't, but now it was on the record. 4. The axe falls. And then a few months later, he gave me a terrible performance review as expected. Long story already long. He was trying to fire me for underperformance. Unfortunately for me, the company had started rounds of layoffs all over, and it was the worst possible time to be looking for another job internally. And now I had a bad performance review on my record, too. I went back to HR and said, that thing I said I was worried would happen when we met 6 months ago. That happened. Exactly as I said. Now what? HR, once again, was no help. Also, they'd done literally nothing. But hey, it was on the record again. Helpful for the attorney later. Blah, blah. When I realized I couldn't find a new gig at my company because of all of the layoffs, I scored a new job for much more money at a different local tech company and pretty quickly. I live in a tech-heavy area. There was lots of shuffling between 3-4 big companies during this time period, and we'd often bump into other company veterans at these other companies. It was a small world. With my track record and references, it was super easy. After that was lined up, I called an employment discrimination attorney to negotiate my exit from the company I thought I'd work at until I retired. Sad face. Because I had documentation with HR explaining inept managers' misogyny and ableism going back for some time. And because they'd done screw all about it, and because there were witnesses who confirmed his behavior, they had no leg to stand on. They agreed to write me a relatively nice check to go away and to not sue them, and I agreed to not talk about the details of my separation agreements. I went down to my lawyer's office and signed the agreement. I looked to see who had signed the agreement for the company. I assumed it would be someone in HR, but it was still blank. I'd eventually get a copy once someone there signed it. I took my check and packed up my office and left. Bye, old company. I started my new job a few weeks later. 5. Karma begins. This was August of that year that I left. I got my copy of the executed contract in the mail in October. Who signed it for the company? Not HR, but my exec VP. The one who asked for the urgent, highly important, legally complicated project. The guy I looked in the eye personally, and then delivered on this very big thing he personally asked for, before the deadline he asked for. That is who signed off on my separation agreement. I suspect that he had no idea until that moment that I was gone, and I imagine that he likely had many questions about what the F had happened. And also, why did they have to pay me a chunk of money on the way out? Whoops. I chortled when I saw it. Since the VP knew me and we had some history, an inept manager was new to the division and was one of hundreds of middle managers he'd likely never heard of. I'm guessing an inept manager had some explaining to do. Mwah. I really enjoyed the thought of that. 6. Karma for reals. Cut to November. As I mentioned, it was a relatively small tech community in the area, and those of us who worked in security, in particular at Company X, would often encounter other current former colleagues at Company I or Z or whatever. Heck, there was a ton of poaching going on between the companies. One day I got an in-company chat from someone who'd worked in security at my old company. We'll call her security colleague. Security colleague asked me if I knew someone named Inept Manager. Why, yes. Yes, I did. Why? Because Inept Manager was appearing on security colleague's schedule to interview for an open management position the very next day. It seems that shortly after my former exec VP had signed my separation agreement contract, Inept Manager was actively looking for a new job at a new company. Huh? Security colleague asked me what I thought about Inept Manager. I said, I can't really talk about it for legal reasons. Which, boom, everyone knows what that means. But if you wanted to ring my personal cell phone later this evening to catch up on old times, please do. She did. I hypothetically shared some stories with her about Inept Manager. I also told her where his hot buttons are, the appearance ego thing, the dominant stuff, etc. And all about his misogyny and ableism, which was perfect since she was conducting his interview. I may have shared some specific scenarios questions to ask which I knew would set him off. I wished her luck and for the love of all that is holy to please call me after, when appropriate, and tell me how it all went. It did not go well for Inept Manager. When security colleague rang me, I couldn't wait. How did it go? Well, he got combative and angry and yelled at me twice during his interview to be hired as a manager. Facepalm. There were lots more details, now lost to time. Except, at that company, interviews loops were assessed as such. Strong hire for this role. Hire, but not for this role. Not a good fit for this job, but we like them. No hire. No hire ever, not for any role. Inept Manager's interview was rated that last one, no hire ever, blacklisted from any job, ever, at one of the biggest tech companies in the world. After being pushed out the door of one of the other biggest tech companies in the world, derp. Shortly after that, it appeared that Inept Manager moved himself and his wife and kids a few states away to work at a smaller company in another region. It took less than 6 months from when I left my old company for him to be gone as well. Huh? What gets me, still, is that Inept Manager thought I was so inconsequential, so unimportant, that he didn't bother to check and see where I landed after he forced me out of the company I loved. And when he had to look for a job himself shortly thereafter, it also never occurred to him that I'd have connections with, thousands of colleagues I'd worked with over the years, some of whom could now be working at Company X or Y or Z where he was interviewing, and where I'd scored a huge raise for myself. To this day, he doesn't know why his interview at Company I tanked so badly. And since security colleague was not legally precluded from sharing stories she had heard through the grapevine about Inept Manager's management problems, it's possible that other of our old security colleagues at Company Z and other companies in this area heard those stories too. Which means he's unlikely to get a job at any major tech company in this area. Maybe ever. Definitely not at X or I, and they are big companies, among the biggest. A recent petty revenge story made me remember this experience from my teenage years, but this one definitely went all the way to pro. Strap in, it's going to be long. So, just before my senior year in high school, I turned 18 and bought a car with my saved-up years of babysitting money. I'd have liked one sooner, but my mother absolutely refused. At 18, in my big act of teenage rebellion, I went out and bought one. A couple months later, Auntie Witch suddenly left her job from several states away and moved in with us, without her car. It cost less if she waited 6 months until spring to get it shipped, something about snowbird travel patterns. She was cheap and a user as well as a jerk. As a result, I was expected to share my recently acquired car with Auntie Witch until hers arrived. This seemed deeply unfair, but nonetheless it was agreed upon that she could use it for appointments and job interviews since I could take the school bus. I needed to be warned in advance because my bus stop was the second one of the route. It left a lot earlier than I needed to if driving directly, and I like sleeping. You may be wondering about now what this has to do with an alarm clock. Auntie Witch is one of those people who likes to rile people up, then mock them for getting mad. She's always got a complaint, harsh words, and is feuding with somebody over something. Once she moved in with us, her complaint was my alarm clock. My room shared a wall with hers. The alarm was waking up her mooching, unemployed, broke self every morning, and that got her angry. Couldn't I just go to bed earlier so I didn't need an alarm clock? The morning schedule at our house went something in the ballpark of this. 5:30 a.m., my workaholic mother leaves for the office. 5:45 a.m., my alarm goes off if taking the bus to school. 6:15 a.m., my alarm goes off if driving to school. 6:15 I leave if taking the bus to school. 6:45 I leave if driving to school. Half past never. Auntie Witch's unemployed self needs to be anywhere. Auntie Witch approached my workaholic mother about the horrific inconvenience of me using an alarm clock. Her solution was that my mother should wake me up every day at 5:30 before leaving. My mother told her to try earplugs or work it out between us. Workaholic mother was massively non-confrontational and wanted no part of an Auntie Witch dispute. Auntie Witch started sneaking into my room to unplug the clock after I fell asleep. I'm a hard sleeper, so she pulled this off a few times. I had a good number of tardies before I figured out it wasn't the new cat who initially got blamed. Woke up to see her standing over my bed one night. Creepy, I screamed like a banshee, waking the whole house. She claimed that she was sleepwalking, and my mother let her get away with that lame excuse. I endeavored to solve the problem myself with some superglue, not the brightest move I made. That house got sold with a bonus electric blue alarm clock, and Auntie Witch started turning the alarm off instead of unplugging it. So I started sleeping with my alarm clock tucked behind my pillow. No way Auntie could do anything to it without waking me now. She was angry at having not gotten her way and never let anything go, ever. Auntie Witch's next move was to get up when the alarm went off and race into the only bathroom with a shower. It was closer to her room than mine, so she always beat me there. She'd stash magazine in there to sit on the commode reading until right around 6:20. This is after the school buses left, but still before I need to leave driving directly. Once I was taking a very rushed shower, she'd steal my keys and take my car wherever the hell the unemployed go to drive around all day. She claimed that I just wasn't paying attention when she said she needed the car. She wasn't telling me. When my mother wasn't around, she made snide remarks that if she was woken up, she had just as much right to the bathroom as I did. I could solve this problem by not waking her up. In addition to this, she would take my car evenings and weekends always right before I had babysitting gigs. It never returned with more than fumes in the gas tank. She had to call roadside assistance twice for running out of gas because she'd guessed wrong on how far she could get on fumes. Needless to say, I was mad. Also massively inconvenienced and a lot poorer. I had to beg my friends for last-minute rides or take a cab. She continued to blame me, and my mother stayed out of it. We got into a cat-and-mouse game with my keys where I eventually kept them on me at all times. Even in the shower, this was an old car some years back. No electronic keys were harmed. The keys came in the shower with me because the counter wasn't enough to stop her from pulling the bathroom lock, pocket door, trivial, and coming in while I was showering to take them. Again, creepy. This eventually resulted in her asking in advance to borrow my car for a job interview that probably wasn't. She went to the key shop and got my car keys copied. The next day, my keys safely back in my possession, she pulls the shower stunt again. She did it a lot even when she wouldn't take my car. Auntie Witch was a witch. I head out to the driveway, keys in hand, and my car is not there. Legit thought she'd hotwired it until I got home and it showed no signs of tampering. I'm not much for poking the bear, but it was time to have this out. Auntie Witch quite smugly admitted to copying the key, called me a selfish person, and that I didn't know how to share, and many other unfortunate things I don't remember exactly. She wasn't giving it back. What was I going to do? I warned her that the car was mine, and she did not have permission to use it ever again. This was a bridge too far for me. There would be consequences. She laughed in my face. The next morning, my car was not in the driveway. I'd expected this. My best friend's dad was a cop. I was practically a fixture in his house for a decade, and he was the closest thing I had to a father figure due to my own deadbeat dad. So I gave him a call, utterly distraught that the car I've worked so hard to get has been stolen from my driveway. He's very sympathetic. Did I mention my car had a LoJack? It was actually a very nice car. Back when it was new anyway. We do all the reporting and whatever it takes for the cops to find it with LoJack. By mid-afternoon, they'd found it in the parking lot of an outlet mall. I don't know what the full details of the encounter were, as I've heard multiple versions of this part of the story over the years. She made a big fuss upon being accused of theft, including a tussle with an officer. It ended in charges of grand theft auto, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, and some kind of license-related thing because she'd never switched it to her new state of residence. Don't throw a tantrum at a cop. They don't like it much. As this all took some time, she didn't get arraigned that day. As her unemployed broke self had hard credit and little money, she couldn't make bail. As I deleted her answering machine message begging my mother to come bail her out, my workaholic mother didn't even notice she was gone for almost a week. Once my workaholic mommy did notice, I explained that my car had been stolen and I called the cops. I was handling the situation myself like she suggested. The look of dawning horror was amazing. Then she shrugged and went back to avoiding all confrontation. Auntie Witch served 2 weeks in county lockup until she took a plea deal. I suspect they slowly walked her paperwork a bit. What happened after was glorious revenge. Auntie Witch's remaining savings were used up on all the fines and court fees, so she finally got around to shipping her car and engaging in a job hunt. One problem: she was previously a teacher. She'd yet to get her certification in her new state. Now she had a rap sheet and was unable to pass the background check. Whoops. Time for a new career as a telemarketer. Auntie Witch didn't bother me much after that. I learned years later she only went after kids hard, and I had proved enough of an adult she realized there were consequences for her actions. We spent the next few months ignoring each other before I headed to college. And that's how a dispute over an alarm clock ended Auntie Witch's teaching career. Edited to answer a few repeat questions. What's up with your mother? Mental illness. She was not a bad person. She simply had almost no capacity to deal with conflict and retreated into her work as a coping mechanism. With time and understanding, I am sympathetic to her role. She has since passed away. Why didn't you call the cops sooner? I had never dealt with anybody so lacking boundaries like Auntie Witch before. I genuinely thought there was a limit, and I just had to handle things until we got there in the name of family harmony. It was also supposed to be temporary. I had college coming up quickly, and she was supposed to find a job apartment, so it was very time-bound. It's the nuclear option to call the cops on a family member, and a very scary thing to contemplate at 18 years old. I also wasn't sure it would work, given she could claim I was confused about permission and the chances my mother would back me up were close to zero. Once I still had my keys in hand and no car in the driveway, that was a game changer in my eyes. Can we get more of an epilogue? There's not a lot to say. I went no contact with Auntie Witch after leaving for college. Between her prison stint and my departure, she ignored me, and I returned the favor. I found out later that she only seriously picks on kids. I'd proved myself an adult who could deliver consequences for her actions. Now I spend holidays with my husband's lovely family and visit the stable family members at other times. Somehow I have hair washing to do every reunion. Whoops. She's never gone back to teaching. Man, you won't believe the crazy crap that went down at the mall today. So I'm cruising around looking for a parking spot, right? And there's this lady, we'll call her Karen, in this monster-sized SUV, probably thinks she owns the whole damn road. I finally spot this sweet spot near the entrance, perfect for my ride. But here comes Karen, out of nowhere, like a bat out to hell, racing me for the spot. Now, I'm not one to back down from a challenge, especially when it comes to parking real estate. We both get there at the same time, and it's a standoff. Horns blaring, people watching, you know the drill. I roll down my window and I'm like, hey, I had my blinker on. This is my spot. Karen, she gives me this death stare and says, I don't care about your blinker. I got a big car. I need space. Move it or lose it. I'm thinking, lady, it's a compact spot, not a monster truck rally. But before I can say anything, she opens her car door like she's ready to throw down. Next thing I know, she shoves me out to the way and parks her tank in my spot. At this point, I'm pissed, but I'm not about to let her ruin my day. So I whip out my phone, dial up the cops, and report this crazy lady. As I'm talking to the dispatcher, Karen's still sitting in her car, probably thinking she's won the parking war. Now here's where it gets even wilder. The cops show up, and it's this badass black officer, Officer Williams. Cool dude, got this no-nonsense vibe. He starts talking to me about what happened, and Karen, she's losing it. She starts ranting about how she needs a white cop because they'll understand her struggle with a big car. I'm standing there like, lady, you're struggling with common decency, not your car size. Officer Williams, he's handling it like a pro, staying calm. But Karen, she's having none of it. She goes off, starts yelling about how she won't let a black cop touch her. I'm just shaking my head thinking, this is some next-level entitlement right here. The moment Officer Williams tries to put the cuffs on her, she goes ballistic. Don't touch me. Get a white officer here. Like, seriously. You just assaulted me and now you're playing the race card. It's a whole circus. And people are gathering around, phones out, recording the madness. She shoves Officer Williams and I'm like, oh, it's on now. The backup arrives. But Karen's still going off about wanting a white cop. The other officers are trying to reason with her, but she's in her own entitled world. Long story short, she gets arrested, and the whole scene is just surreal. They take her away in cuffs, still screaming about her rights and her big car struggles. I'm standing there finally getting my parking spot, and I can't help but shake my head. Later on, Officer Williams comes up to me, apologizes for the craziness, like he's got anything to be sorry for. I tell him it's all good, not his fault. Karen's living in her own entitled bubble. As I'm walking into the mall, I hear someone behind me go, "Did you see that Karen?" Shoving a cop because he's not the right color. And I'm thinking, man, this is going to be one heck of a story to tell. So I head into the mall, shaking off the crazy encounter and thinking, only at the mall. Man, only at the mall. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Please allow me to note well in advance. This story is not mine. In fact, it's a rather popular story in a town I once lived in, Savannah, Georgia, and centers around one homeowner who got royally annoyed with a movie producer. There will be a note at the end about the fellow this story is about, for those interested. Okay, so first and foremost, when movie producers are looking for places to set a movie that takes place in colonial or even 1800 cities in the U.S., due to the sheer number of parks, wide roads, and period houses, they will often select Savannah, Georgia. They'll pull all the Spanish moss out of the trees, or trim it back, pour dirt on the roads around the squares, and effectively backdate that part of the city to fit most any place. Even up to some having used the area as a setting for places like early Washington, D.C., and even places in Britain or France. Typically, when producers do this, they will pay each homeowner whose house is used as background flavor a couple $1,000s for the licensing to do so. That will be important later, trust me. They issue some rules like no electric lights being visible, not coming out of any door that faces the street, and you have to move your automobiles away from the drive. If you have a drive, well, 1979, a producer came from Hollywood with the intention of using Savannah for that very purpose. Specifically, the producer was from one of the big three-letter TV channels and was working on making a made-for-TV movie talking about the events after the assassination of Lincoln and the subsequent accusations of the doctor present at his death. The production went to the city to seek permission and then sent an announcement out to each of the homeowners telling them of the various days that the shoot was going to take place. However, much to their downfall, they also noted that the production company would not be compensating the homeowners for the use of their homes as backdrops. This was met with some great annoyance by the homeowners, who turned to the city for help only to be told that it was their civic duties to allow the use of their homes. Most everyone agreed to this and bit their lips. One homeowner, however, didn't. He decided to get revenge on the production, attempting to screw up their shooting every chance he got. He first started by leaving his car out in front of his house, only to have it towed before filming started. He threatened legal action against the studio, but that fell on deaf ears. He forbade the use of his home in some of the shots, but the production company got the city to make him back down. Eventually, enough was enough. So he waited, biding his time until he was certain they were filming. When the day came that his house was being used as a background shot, the homeowner grabbed a massive Nazi flag and hung it out front of the house, out of one of the top windows. The production company balked. They knew that this ruined any shot they'd used there. And what's more, they started to question just when he'd put the flag up. Was it just the one day, or had all the previous shots, some which showed the house from across the square, been ruined as well? They turned to the city for help, and the city just basically shrugged, saying that it was his First Amendment right to do that, and implied that had the production company paid the homeowners, as had always been done before, then this probably wouldn't have happened. In the end, the production company had to end shooting and go to the homeowner begging for him to remove the offending flag. He did eventually do so, but only after his lawyer got a contract in writing that required the production company to pay all the homeowners for having their homes in the shot. The flag came down and shooting wrapped in less than a day. Interestingly, it's said that in the movie in question, The Ordeal of Dr. Mudd, there are several shots where you can see a bright red Nazi flag flying from one of the homes in the distance. That stunt cost a producer quite a substantial amount of money and pushed production back at least a year while they tried to find every single instance that the flag flew in the background shots. This homeowner would go on to himself become very famous, though not for a good reason. Even so, he lives on among the legends of that city, both for his revenge against a movie producer and his later brush with fame. I rant because I feel I'm going insane. I'm currently pregnant. It is my first baby and is the first child on my side of the family, specifically just my family, not cousins or anything, as we aren't close to them. Now, I understand the excitement of grandparents and the possible lack of etiquette when this is a new thing. However, my mother has been dropping a few sentences here and there which to me seem inappropriate and super annoying. I pointed it out to her many times and starting to set boundaries from now, only to get a death stare back or a how dare I take this away from them, or how this isn't how things were done before. FYI, I am 30. Here are some of the things she says. Apparently, it is a family baby and also hers and my dad's baby. God knows what that means. She specifically said that when they babysit, the child will be raised their own way. Again, what? I am not particularly fond of breastfeeding. I am not downright saying I won't do it. But I did put down a food prep machine on my wants list, and it may have been mentioned in a conversation. We don't have things like a baby registry. I have been told off about this for a very long time. I have mentioned a few names we like, and she very much disagrees with half of them and says they're not normal or nice. They're standard human names, not like emojis lol, and we like them. We don't want a gender reveal party. I want to have an intimate cake cutting between myself and my husband, and then just tell whoever we want or not. She is claiming we are taking that away from her. She has made it clear that they will speak to our baby in a language of their choice and not English. English is not my mother tongue, but they speak English well. Of course, the baby will be bilingual, but it isn't up to them. I have a complication with my pregnancy, and my mother claims the doctor is wrong and I should not be taking the medicine I am given. Trust me, I have done my research. I know it is for my own good and the health of the baby. I like to be active and I walk, do a little jog, and lift weights. I've been doing it before pregnancy. I've checked with my doctor and I am not lifting 100 kg. She says I should not be doing that. And basically, I should just be sat on my bum the whole day and pretend I am dying or something until the kid is born. I'm unsure how to put it nicer than it is, and I'm unsure how to just, cut her out. It really stresses me out now, and it definitely would stress me out even more when the baby is here. And I wouldn't want this to turn into a tug of war with a child that, frankly, I would definitely like to raise the complete opposite way of how I was raised. I definitely had to reparent myself, and there were many, many horrible things I had to overcome as a child because she completely did not give a crap about the emotional well-being of me. Little backstory. My parents split back in 2022. Not shocking, they should have split years ago. Well, this led to a lot. My mom pretty much started dating what seemed like the next day. She was with an old boyfriend of hers, whom is a sex offender. This is important later. Well before the split, I had a complete nervous breakdown. I had one trigger that caused something from my childhood that I had suppressed to come back. See, my uncle, Mom's brother, had molested me when I was little. Said uncle had also went to kill my dad and beat his former girlfriend in front of everyone. Yeah, he's crazy. So at the time, I was living with my parents and said uncle came over a lot. So I proceeded to tell my mom and she did not believe me. Pretty much refused to believe me. I only told her because I was worried about what my cousin said to my uncle's daughter. But that did not seem to cross her mind, and she simply didn't care. So this led to her and I having more and more problems, when led to me moving out and simply nearly losing it. Skip forward to now. I have completely cut her out of my life. I tried to have a relationship with her, but it never fails. She has some type of drama and never has a positive outlook on anything. She owns a business where she helps kids, all of which come to her home. This is where the sex offender boyfriend comes into play. She allows him around the kids. She has now started causing drama with me on social media and contacting me. She is extremely jealous of my mother-in-law along with my stepmom, whom I have extremely close relationship with. It is as if she doesn't want me to have anyone in my life other than here. This includes my husband. She has enforced me on numerous occasions that she's my mom and deserves to know how I am. super entitled. So my question is, am I wrong for cutting my mom out of my life? Major side note. I am also realizing I have major childhood trauma from her. She would threaten to call the cops on me for something as small as backtalk. I was told I would go to hell for pretty much anything. When I say I was extremely sheltered, I mean sheltered. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.